It was a rare day off for Mary, one she intended to spend with her son, Tommy.
Margaret, it's rare for me to have a day off. You should rest well. I'll take Tommy out for the day.
Margaret's expression turned unpleasant as she grabbed Tommy's arm, eyeing Mary warily.
You finally have a day off. You should rest. I'll take care of Tommy.
Margaret, Tommy is my son. I know I've been too busy with work and haven't spent enough time with him. This is my chance to make up for it. The less I take care of him, the less I'll know how to.
After much persuasion, Margaret finally agreed to let Mary take Tommy out to play.
Tommy, Mommy is taking you to the amusement park today. Are you excited?
Tommy remained silent, a pang of sadness filling Mary's heart. She reflected on how her busy schedule had distanced her from her son and even strained her relationship with Margaret. At the amusement park, with constant guidance, Tommy finally opened up, even smiling at Mary.
Thirsty? Here, have some water before you continue playing.
I don't want it. I want cola.
Tommy, be good. Drinking too much cola can stunt your growth. Listen to Mommy, let's drink water, okay?
At work, everyone knew Mary as a decisive and strong-willed woman. Who would have thought she could be so patient and gentle with Tommy? But unexpectedly, Tommy knocked the water bottle out of Mary's hand and rolled his eyes.
You're not my mommy. I want my mommy.
Mary's heart skipped a beat. She maintained her smile.
Tommy, Mommy knows you're upset, but you shouldn't say things like that. It would make Mommy sad, okay?
I hate you. I don't want you. I want my mommy.
People around them started looking over, as if Mary were some mistress trying to win over the original family's child.
The child wants a drink and is throwing a tantrum.
A young mother nearby looked at Tommy and Mary with disdain.
Does he look like his father?
Mary's heart sank, but she kept a polite smile.
Boys should look like their fathers.
The young mother sneered and walked away with her child. Her words left a knot in Mary's heart. Mary lost patience in coaxing Tommy and bought him a bottle of cola, which finally quieted him down. The rest of the outing went smoothly, but the woman's words and Margaret's behavior kept echoing in her mind. On an impulse, she pulled a strand of Tommy's hair. The next day, she made an excuse about going to work and headed straight to Emily's hospital. I held the paternity test results, my expression inscrutable. Emily sat beside me, worried. She hadn't expected this outcome either.
Generally, if a child and mother aren't biologically related, the most likely issue occurred at birth. Maybe the nurse made a mistake back then. Oh, don't overthink it.
Emily cautiously comforted me.
You and James have been together since college, despite the huge family background differences. Your mom tried so hard to stop you, but you still married him. If he dares to betray you, I'll deal with him myself.
I put away the paternity test and handed it to Emily.
I feel like there's more to this. Tommy's behavior that day clearly indicated he knew I wasn't his mom. Do you still have the sample I gave you from Tommy? I need you to help me do a paternity test between David and Tommy.
When the results came out, Emily sighed. My heart sank.
Look, Tommy isn't David's son either. Don't worry, maybe it really was a mix-up at the hospital.
Emily, I'll have my mom send you the entire new series of perfumes as a thank you.
My mom is a renowned perfumer, famous both domestically and internationally. This small favor is nothing for her. My beauty salon's success is also thanks to her reputation.
It's just a bottle of perfume, but since my best friend is a wealthy lady, I'll be waiting for your perfumes.
Half of my worries were alleviated. The most important thing now was whether David knew Tommy wasn't our son. Maybe Margaret's previous attitude was genuinely out of concern for the child. I arranged to meet David alone over the weekend. Of course, I didn't mention my suspicion of him having a mistress. I just said I felt something was off and did a paternity test. David looked at the 2 paternity test results in front of him, silent.
Anna, I can't hide it from you anymore.
David sighed, grabbing my hand, his eyes filled with pity, making my heart skip a beat.
Anna, you know, our child wasn't very healthy when you were pregnant.
My face gradually darkened.
After the last prenatal checkup, the doctor told me to be prepared. I often left early and returned late because of this. But I never expected the child wouldn't make it. I was afraid you'd suffer from postpartum depression, so I replaced our child with Tommy, who was prepared a month in advance. I tried to keep you from seeing Tommy in the first few days, fearing you'd notice something was wrong.
David's words echoed in my ears, but I felt like I was split into 2. One part had left my body, in disbelief. The other part calmly withdrew my hand from David's.
So, our biological child died at birth?
David nodded silently, his face full of concern for me. I thought it was just a mix-up. But the reality was even more heartbreaking than I had imagined. For several days, the atmosphere at home was very gloomy. Robert and Margaret became increasingly gentle with me, even allowing me to interact with Tommy more.
We just want you to feel comfortable and loved.
I felt a bit guilty, realizing that David and his parents were only looking out for me. I had misunderstood them before. Tommy was being well taken care of. Both families cherished him as their precious treasure, showering him with all their love. My parents were busy with work but never failed to send us various high-end children's products and nutritional supplements. Even the prestigious private kindergarten Tommy attended was arranged by my parents. Tommy was innocent, but thinking about it, all these things should have belonged to my own child, who now had nothing. The thought made my heart ache.
Wife, think of it this way, we should treat Tommy doubly well, as if we're accumulating good karma for our own child, so they can have a better life in the next world, right?
David said, half hugging me in bed. Was our child a boy or a girl? I suddenly asked.
A girl, a lovely little angel.
For some reason, tears started streaming down my face. The next day, I went to another property I owned, a duplex villa. I hired a construction team to open up the second floor and design it entirely as a little girl's room. From baby toys to dolls and dresses for a young girl, everything was there. The renovation was quite extensive, and I didn't intend to hide it from David. However, the way David and his parents looked at me made it seem like they thought I had lost my mind.
What are you doing? You spent nearly $1 million in a week just to create this useless room?
Our biological child didn't even have a chance to live. Besides us, who else would remember her? Tommy has already received so much love from everyone. Now, I just want to create a memory for our daughter. Is that too much to ask? David's expression changed several times before he finally softened.
All right, we'll do as you say. I know you're heartbroken right now, but don't forget, the family is worried about you.
With David and his parents' careful companionship, my emotions soon stabilized. Apart from that villa, I didn't do anything else that seemed irrational. This gradually put David at ease. A month later, everything seemed to return to normal, as if nothing had happened. Except every Sunday, I would go to the villa early in the morning, silently imagining what our daughter would look like as she grew up. David accompanied me the first 2 times, but seeing my emotions stabilize, he stayed home to take care of our son. Initially, David was quite capable, but over time, he became more inclined to enjoy life and less willing to work, eventually leading to his dismissal. I was afraid of hurting his pride and, since I was earning more and more, enough to support the family, I let him become a full-time stay-at-home dad, handing over the finances to him, fulfilling his life aspirations. The sorrow of suddenly learning the truth gradually faded with time, and I returned to being the decisive career woman I once was. One Sunday, as I was preparing to go to the villa to quietly work and spend time with my daughter, I received an urgent message from the company. An important document had been left at home, and I needed to retrieve it. When I arrived at the entrance of our community, I saw our car turning in. David was driving, and in the passenger seat sat another young woman. I parked my car outside the community and walked in. I waited quietly downstairs, and soon, I saw David and that woman coming out of the underground garage. David had his arm around the woman, and they went upstairs, laughing and chatting. My heart felt like it had plunged into an icy abyss. David had someone else outside our marriage. And Robert and Margaret knew about it. Judging by the woman's brazen demeanor, it was easy to guess. The whole family knew, except me. I stood there, stunned, with a nearly uncontrollable rage building inside me. I wanted to rush up and confront them. I didn't know how long I stood there until the sun made my head feel hot. Taking a deep breath, I told myself to stay calm. Going upstairs now would only alert them. I took one last look in the direction of my home and returned to my car. I turned the car around and headed straight to Emily's house.
The James family is unbelievable. Your family is so well off, and it wasn't your fault that the child was lost. How could they just let their son find a mistress outside? Are they planning to have the mistress give them a child? What's wrong with an adopted child? Your husband is no good either. He used to comfort you by holding the child, but now he's brought the mistress home.
Emily's words made my heart skip a beat. The child. My family is well off, and David is handsome, a popular figure in college, and well behaved. That's why we got together. His family is quite ordinary, with some traditional views about needing a male heir. Could it be that Tommy? I shook my head. We had already done a paternity test, so the issue must have arisen after the child was born. An adopted child ultimately couldn't satisfy Robert and Margaret.
So, what are you going to do?
Emily calmed down and helped me come up with a plan. Tommy is innocent in all this. If it comes to it, I'll get a divorce. Tommy is adopted, so David probably won't want him. Thinking this way, my slight dissatisfaction with Tommy's lack of closeness turned into pity. I'll take care of Tommy. I want to see how far this mistress has gone. James seems to have forgotten that the house he lives in and the money he spends are all from me. I decided to act immediately. I didn't tell my parents for now. I hadn't mentioned that Tommy was adopted either. I'll tell them everything once this is resolved. I bought a batch of highly discreet cameras. I found an opportunity to install them around the house. The following Sunday, I left home as usual. When I got to the duplex villa, I opened my laptop and accessed the surveillance footage. Sure enough, David had already left. Margaret was smiling at Tommy, who was playing with his toys.
Tommy, are you excited? Mommy will be here soon.
Tommy also showed an expectant smile. What did that mean? Had they already started calling that woman Mommy? Were they planning to keep Tommy even if we divorced? My mind was full of questions, but the important thing was, I wanted to see who this mistress was. Soon, the door opened. David led a woman inside. As soon as she entered, Tommy ran up to her affectionately, completely different from how he behaved with me. My heart ached. Then I saw the woman's face clearly. Why did she look so familiar? Emily arrived quickly, and we watched the surveillance footage together.
Whoa. Isn't that our chief physician?
I turned to her sharply.
You know this person?
Yeah, our chief physician. She joined a month after me, but somehow got promoted rapidly.
Emily continued, her voice tinged with bitterness.
Rumor has it she has connections and sends gifts to the higher-ups.
She's quite wealthy.
My mind couldn't help but recall what Emily had said the last time we did a paternity test.
When you helped my husband do a paternity test for Tommy last time, did she find out?
Yeah, it took some effort to smooth things over afterward.
Emily looked puzzled, but then quickly realized something. Her face was full of shock.
No way!
The paternity test was discovered by that woman. Tommy was very familiar with her, and called her mom. Connecting all the dots, the truth was becoming clear.
Could Tommy be that woman's son?
Emily suddenly understood, then gritted her teeth.
I knew it! That woman usually acts so nosy, but this time she was easily appeased with a bottle of perfume. She must have tampered with the paternity test out of guilt.
It would be simple to get to the bottom of this, just do another paternity test. However, a paternity test requires the consent of both parents. I was only able to do it last time because Emily helped. Now, it was clear that Emily's side was no longer safe. I could only turn to my parents for help. I decided to act immediately. I drove straight home, and my parents were indeed there. At this point, I had evidence, irrefutable proof. If the paternity test confirmed my suspicions, there would be no doubt left. I laid everything out for them. My parents were shocked for a long time. But being people who had seen much in life, they quickly calmed down.
All right, it just so happens that Uncle Sam's son has just returned from abroad and is working at the 3rd hospital. He should be able to help you.
Dad directly sent me Sam Jr.'s contact information.
Alan? Is it him?
I suddenly remembered, feeling a bit surprised. Uncle Sam was my dad's good friend, and I used to play with Alan a lot when we were kids. He was a few years younger than me and used to follow me around, sweetly calling me sister. Later, Uncle Sam's family moved abroad, and we gradually lost contact. So, the kid is back?
He's now a PhD from H University and has just returned as a special expert at the 3rd hospital. You haven't seen each other in a long time. You should go have a meal together.
Since I needed his help, I agreed without hesitation. I picked a time and sent him a message, inviting him out for dinner. I didn't reveal any of this to the James family. When the appointed time came, I put on exquisite makeup. David looked at me with admiration.
My wife is so beautiful, I don't want to let you go.
David's face was full of affection. If I didn't know he had been unfaithful for a long time and even had a son with another woman, I might have been fooled by him.
Wife, do you want me to pick you up?
No need. I'm just meeting an old friend today, no drinking.
All right, wife, be safe on the road.
I turned and left, hiding the cold smile on my lips. I wanted to see how long he could keep up this loving husband act once the truth was out.
Miss Lynn, long time no see.
I looked at Alan, a tall, handsome man who reminded me of a refined villain from a novel. Dressed in a suit, he exuded charm and confidence. I was momentarily stunned. Growing up, I had seen my fair share of attractive boys from good families, but Alan was different. He had an exceptional aura that set him apart.
Please, have a seat.
I realized I had been staring and blushed slightly. Remembering my purpose, I quickly regained my composure. After ordering food, we began some casual conversation to build rapport.
It has indeed been a long time. You used to call me Sister Anna, and now it's Miss Lynn?
Alan seemed a bit surprised, a flicker of astonishment in his eyes.
They say important people often forget things, but I didn't expect Miss Lynn to remember me.
It's not appropriate for you to call me sister now, so why don't you just call me by my name?
Anna Lynn.
My name had an Anna in it, but coming from his mouth, it carried an inexplicable hint of intimacy. With this playful start, the atmosphere relaxed. Most importantly, he seemed to remember some childhood memories. Though he appeared aloof, the conversation was quite pleasant.
I need your help with a paternity test.
He pondered for a moment.
You suspect your husband has you raising another woman's child?
Yes, if necessary, I can try to get a strand of her hair.
James had the audacity to bring another woman's child into our home and even let her work at the same place as my best friend. It gave me the opportunity to gather evidence.
And if it's confirmed?
Then I'll kick him out with nothing.
I slammed my fist on the table, then quickly realized there was someone else present and restrained my expression. He seemed to have a hint of amusement in his eyes.
Such a paternity test can't be used as evidence of infidelity, as it's illegal.
No problem, once it's confirmed, I'll have my own ways.
He nodded and didn't ask further. We just set a time and then talked about other things. The meal was quite enjoyable, aside from the paternity test discussion. It especially helped to significantly close the gap between Alan and me, almost bringing back the feeling of childhood companionship. After dinner, it was already late, and Alan offered to drive me home. When I entered the house, I saw David sitting on the sofa. He looked like a good husband waiting for his wife to come home. But unexpectedly, the usually gentle and considerate him had a slightly sharp tone.
Who is that man?
I paused slightly and continued taking off my shoes, looking tired and nonchalant.
A friend.
A friend? A friend who drives you home late at night.
He's my dad's brother's son, just returned from abroad. Didn't I tell you before?
David's expression stiffened. I had indeed mentioned it. But at that time, I deliberately said it might be a Sunday outing. He was too busy reuniting his son with his biological mother to pay attention. Sure enough, he softened.
Wife, it's just because I love you so much. Of course, I trust you, just a bit jealous.
In the past, this attitude would have pleased me, showing his love. Now, I coldly watched his performance. Was it the ridiculous possessiveness of men? Or was he afraid of losing his financial support? Even if he didn't want me, he wouldn't let another man have me. Alan had significant authority, and the paternity test results came back quickly, including the one for the mistress. As expected, Tommy was their child. I calmly packed both sets of results and stood up.
People shouldn't make any decisions or drive when they're extremely angry.
He blocked my way at the door. I took a deep breath and surprisingly, I smiled.
I can start preparing to kick the jerk out. Shouldn't I be happy about such a good thing?
Alan was clearly taken aback and had no response. I brushed past him. Soon, I heard footsteps following me. He got into the driver's seat before I could.
Where are you going? I'll take you.
I was slightly stunned and a bit touched. I had originally planned to go home and confront James with the test results. James had the audacity to find a mistress, but the most disturbing part was making me raise their child. I felt like the biggest fool of the century. My husband lived off me, ate my food, wore my clothes, and even made me raise his mistress's child? Alan's interruption made me completely calm down. Seeing that I wasn't speaking, he started the car. Lost in thought, I didn't pay attention. James dared to have a child with someone else and even raised him under my nose without divorcing me. Wasn't it all for my money? Getting a divorce was easy. Making him leave cleanly was a bit more challenging. Right now, I only had the evidence recorded at home, which wasn't enough. If I revealed the paternity test now, it would alert him. Instead, it would be better to start with the mistress. I gave Alan an address, and without a word, he turned the car around. Unexpectedly, this man, who seemed cold, was actually gentle and considerate inside. According to Emily, this mistress had joined the hospital around the same time as her but had quickly been promoted. Clearly, she had some backing, and I wanted to find out. I hired a private investigator and didn't hide any of this from Alan. What I didn't expect was that before the private investigator could produce results, James caused another issue. James was a stay-at-home husband, and I usually gave him $2,000 at the beginning of each month. But in reality, he would ask for a few hundred more each week. Considering that Margaret and Tommy were around, buying some supplements or toys for the child, I didn't think much of it. This Sunday, James was particularly unusual, suggesting we go to the duplex villa together. What, not reuniting with the mistress and Tommy? I thought, but naturally, I couldn't refuse. Soon, I knew what he was up to.
Wife, didn't I say I was learning something at home? I found an online course on photography that's pretty good, but the registration and equipment are a bit expensive.
James was more tender than usual. This suddenly reminded me that he always acted this way when he wanted a large sum of money.
I saw that beginners don't need to buy expensive equipment, just the X234 beginner series will do.
A suspicion arose in my mind, but I remained calm.
How much?
That one is $15,000, and with the film and other accessories, it's just under $30,000.
My mind raced, and without a word, I transferred the money. That night, I hid in the bathroom and sent a few messages to the private investigator. Soon, the results came in. I sneered at the pile of documents in front of me.
Well, James, you really are something else. That's right. James, not only did he use my money to support the other woman's child, but he also supported the other woman herself. Her rapid rise was all thanks to my husband, James. And the money naturally came from me.
Blood rushed to my head, and my vision darkened. I could feel the private investigator's sympathetic gaze on me.
Ma'am, based on what you've told me, you can actually proceed with a divorce right now. You have video evidence, a paternity test, and these transfer records. If one spouse files a lawsuit in the People's Court to confirm the non-existence of a parent-child relationship and provides necessary evidence, and the other party has no contrary evidence and refuses to undergo a paternity test, the court can presume the claim of non-existence of the parent-child relationship to be valid. At that point, he will have to undergo a paternity test, and combined with the transfer records, these are considered marital assets and can be directly recovered.
I realized that James and the other woman had started their relationship before I even met him. Or rather, she was actually James's first love. I met James in our freshman year, he started pursuing me, and we officially got together in our sophomore year. It's been 8 years since then. He spent nearly $1 million on that woman. There's no way she could have come up with that money herself. Given the situation, I was done dragging things out. When I got home, I deliberately arranged for Robert and Margaret to take Tommy on a 2-day, 1-night tour over the weekend. I slapped the paternity test results right in James' face.
Wife, what does this mean?
At first, he didn't take it seriously, since I had shown it to him once before. But when he opened it, his expression froze.
Keep pretending.
He panicked.
Wife, let me explain.
James dropped to his knees. Ha, what a pathetic sight. Able to bend and stretch? Kneeling just like that?
Go ahead, explain.
I'm sorry, wife, I was confused.
James was somewhat clever, otherwise, I wouldn't have chosen him among so many suitors back then. He knew that if I could quietly obtain a genuine paternity test, I must have identified the other woman and investigated her. But he didn't know how much I had found out. So he only admitted that she was his first love.
The child was really an accident. I hadn't quit my job yet and went on a business trip. I got drunk and one thing led to another. Then you happened to lose our child, and I was really afraid you'd be heartbroken. I was confused at the time and thought Tommy was the only child of the right age, so I brought him over.
The once celebrated literary heartthrob's handsome face now made me feel nauseous.
In this day and age, you still blame it on getting drunk? Do you think I'm an idiot? Can you really get someone pregnant just by being drunk? You're a graduate of a prestigious university. Don't embarrass yourself like this.
I mercilessly berated him, making his face turn red and blue.
Annalyn, don't push me too far. With your sanctimonious appearance, don't think I don't know about your dirty dealings with that Alan guy.
Alan? What did he have to do with this?
You rich girls have no idea how messy your private lives are. You like Alan, don't you? But he went abroad, so you just found an honest man to take over. Yes, what I did was wrong, but you forced me into it.
His self-righteous demeanor was laughable. Alan and I were completely innocent.
All right, James, Alan and I are completely innocent. Check all you want, but stop wasting time. Since you and your first love are true love, fine, I'll let you be together. Tommy, your son, you take him. Everything else, return it all.
I threw a stack of printed transfer screenshots at him.
The money you gave your first love is considered marital property. If you want me to give you more time, stop wasting it.
His eyes showed fear. He hadn't expected me to investigate so thoroughly.
No, you can't do this, wife, Anna, I was just confused. Give me another chance.
Unfortunately, I looked at him, unmoved.
Tomorrow, let's meet at the Civil Affairs office.
I walked into the bedroom and locked the door. Lying on the bed, tears started to flow uncontrollably. To say I didn't love James would be a lie. If it were just for marriage, I could have patiently chosen from the many suitors. If I didn't love him, why would I willingly carry a child for 10 months? Over time, this love didn't fade, it just got buried deeper, mixed with familial affection. Who would have thought the person closest to me would betray me? Today, I cried for him for the last time, letting the tears flow freely. Starting tomorrow, I would be a new me. Early the next morning, I packed up, but to my surprise, Robert and Tommy, who were supposed to be traveling, came back early. Seeing James's evasive eyes, I understood.
What? Are you trying to use the mistress's child to bind me?
Margaret, who was about to say something, was visibly taken aback. Her expression turned awkward.
Anna, you've taken care of Tommy since he was little. There's no blood relation, but the affection is real.
I almost laughed out loud. How could they have the nerve to say that? Didn't they realize that Tommy's existence was the biggest insult to me?
James, stop playing these games. Divorce me now. I'll give you a day to move out, or you can leave today.
Perhaps never having seen me so ruthless, Tommy started crying out of fear. Robert and Margaret hurriedly tried to comfort Tommy. I felt a pang in my heart but then calmed down. Anna Lynn, that child is the mistress's, born with original sin. Don't let a saintly heart wrong yourself. Seeing my firm attitude, James had no choice but to go to the civil affairs office with me. Unfortunately, we didn't get the divorce certificate today. That damn cooling off period meant we had to wait another month. I didn't go back home. Instead, I went straight to the duplex villa. I had recently renovated it in memory of my daughter, and now it was ready to move in, with all utilities in place. It was a blessing for me now. Baby, have you been watching over Mom all this time? For the next week, I didn't see James. I went to work as usual. As for the mistress, I certainly wouldn't let her off the hook. But since we hadn't officially divorced yet, I wouldn't take any action against her for now. James, however, started making moves first. I frowned as I saw James standing at the company entrance, holding a large bouquet of vibrant roses with a look of deep affection. It was ridiculous. After everything had fallen apart, he still had the nerve to act all lovey-dovey? Seeing the envious and accustomed looks from my colleagues around me made me feel nauseous.
James, we're already divorced. Isn't this a bit much? Isn't it disgusting?
My merciless words shocked my colleagues. Many of them gathered around. I regretted it a bit.
I know I wronged you, but Tommy is also someone you've raised since he was little. Are you really that heartless?
Bringing the child into this. Seeing the eager eyes of those around us, it was clear how much they wanted to gossip. I frowned, wanting to talk to him privately. But he knew I wouldn't reveal that Tommy was the mistress's child.
I told you, our daughter didn't survive when she was born. I brought Tommy back because I didn't want you to be heartbroken. I didn't mean to deceive you.
With just a few words, he diverted attention from Tommy's true identity. Most people would think I was angry because I found out the child wasn't mine, but that my husband had good intentions.
Young lady, your husband did it for your own good. It's not right to hide it from you, but now there's all this talk about postpartum depression. Your husband was thinking of you.
One comment after another. I glimpsed the smugness in James's eyes, feeling waves of nausea. As someone who always prided herself on being strong, I really didn't want to admit in public that I had raised the mistress's child for 3 years. But then I saw Alan standing quietly behind me in the crowd. James's expression changed slightly, but he said nothing. Suddenly, I thought of my own daughter. How could I let a mistress's child take away the love and care that should have been for my own daughter? How could I face my parents?
James, this is the first time I've seen someone twist the truth so much.
You let me raise the mistress's son for 3 years. What? Do you expect me to help raise him to adulthood too?
My words were shocking. No one expected the truth to be this. James didn't expect it either. He didn't think I would say it out loud. The crowd erupted. There were jeers, but more people were condemning James. It wasn't as terrifying as I had imagined. Even those who jeered were quickly silenced by others. James panicked and left in a hurry. But I knew he wouldn't give up so easily. The next day, I received a notice that James had withdrawn the divorce application. I felt a wave of frustration as I looked at Uncle Sam's family sitting opposite me. Today, my parents had invited Uncle Sam's family out for a meal. I couldn't leave. Alan noticed my unease and suggested we take a walk around the area. My parents, aware of my recent mood, readily agreed. We walked quietly towards the parking lot.
Did James withdraw the divorce application?
Yes.
Then file the lawsuit. This was never your fault.
I suddenly remembered how, after revealing the truth yesterday, I had expected ridicule but instead received support from everyone. When I got home, James's family was there. They were certain I would come. Seeing Alan, James's face immediately fell, showing no attempt to hide his displeasure.
Annalyn, are you divorcing me because of this pretty boy?
His parents' faces also changed.
A woman flirting outside and still has the nerve to ask my son for a divorce?
James has a good temper. Break it off with this man, and we'll consider you confused this time. Don't associate with such dubious men in the future.
Their words dragged the most innocent Alan into the mess. I felt a wave of disgust and suddenly didn't want to say anything.
James, expect a court summons.
James was stunned.
A woman daring to sue her own husband. Son, don't be afraid. She's just bluffing.
I felt a deep sadness. Despite graduating from a prestigious university, did he really not understand this? No, he understood. He was just hoping for a lucky break. Plus, he couldn't let go of his current life. Looking at the messages he sent, suggesting we could send Tommy away and have another child together, I couldn't even muster the energy to read them.
I heard your case is temporarily settled. Since there's nothing much happening in the second half of the year, why not take a trip to France to relax?
I looked at him in surprise, but said nothing. This matter would only be truly over once I got the divorce certificate and the court required the mistress to return the marital assets. James eventually reapplied for the divorce with me. The cooling-off period had to be recalculated. Annoying. But he still wouldn't give up.
Don't you want to know where your biological daughter's ashes are?
What did he mean? I gripped my phone tightly. This was something I had never considered. I thought these things were long lost. Had he properly handled our daughter's final arrangements? I immediately agreed to meet him. Sensing he had found my weak spot, he dropped the pretense, looking at me smugly.
Annalyn, since that's the case, I have no other demands. First, you can't pursue the money I gave away before. Second, as a couple, splitting our assets 50-50 isn't too much to ask, is it?
Narrator, tone, serious. I finally saw James for who he truly was. I couldn't believe how blind I had been before. But James held the whereabouts of our daughter's ashes, truly gripping my lifeline. Noticing I hadn't appealed to the court, Alan came to find me first.
Alan, tone, serious, no need, just follow the normal lawsuit process. Leave the rest to me.
Narrator, tone, hopeful. I was a bit surprised. Honestly, I knew in my heart that James and his family, those ultimate leeches, wouldn't let go easily now that they had this leverage over me. But I still held on to a sliver of hope. Now that Alan was willing to help me, I felt much relieved. Trusting his abilities, I decided to follow his advice.
Narrator, tone, terrified when the court summons arrived, James panicked.
James, tone, shouting Annalyn, are you crazy? Are you really going to ignore your daughter's ashes?
Narrator, tone, angry hearing him mention our daughter's ashes so casually, the pain and hatred in my heart surged, my voice growing colder.
Anna, tone, serious. James, I've recorded all our conversations. Your threats about our daughter's ashes will be part of the evidence.
Narrator, tone, serious. James, who had never seen me so ruthless, was scared. Following Alan's advice, I blocked him completely, ignoring everything. Until the day of the trial. The evidence was overwhelming. Videos of the mistress at our home, paternity test results, debt records, gifts for promotions from the mistress. The evidence was irrefutable. No matter how much the James family pleaded or cursed, everything was settled. With the court's supervision, they couldn't play any tricks. Narrator, tone, relieved. I immediately sold the house. It felt tainted, and I didn't want it anymore. As for my daughter's ashes, I didn't have to wait long. 3 days later, Alan brought a small urn to me. The moment I saw that urn, tears fell from my eyes. In that instant, I felt an inexplicable connection. Narrator, tone, sad. Later, I took a long vacation and, following Alan's suggestion, went to France. So much had happened in just 2 months. Sitting on the plane, I closed my eyes wearily. Someone sat down next to me, but I didn't open my eyes.
Alan, tone, cheerful Anna, do you mind some company?
Narrator, tone, surprised. A familiar voice, tinged with a hint of laughter, sounded in my ear. I opened my eyes in surprise. It was Alan. What was he up to? Hadn't he just returned to the country? Why was he going abroad again?
Alan, tone, friendly. One of my teachers retired and settled in France. I'm just going to visit.
Narrator, tone, friendly. I didn't say anything, accepting his company by default. Later, I silently observed everything he had done for me. I wasn't a child anymore. I knew he was pursuing me. It was hard to understand. Especially hard to understand was how, when James blocked me at the company entrance, Alan had already arranged for people to counter those who mocked me, giving me courage.
Alan, tone, cheerful Anna, we promised when we were kids that you'd be my bride when we grew up. Who knew you wouldn't keep your word?
Narrator, tone, shy. Distant memories flooded my mind. My face reddened slightly.
Anna, tone, shy. How can childhood promises count?
Alan, tone, serious, but I took it seriously.
Narrator, tone, hopeful. That usually cold, unapproachable face now showed a hint of grievance.
Alan, tone, hopeful Anna, isn't it time to fulfill your promise?
Narrator, tone, hopeful. I had already lost faith in men. But, it turned out, someone had always remembered a childhood promise, never wavering.